You're listening to the Christian Indie Artists and Songwriters podcast, the place where faith, music, and life intersect. We exist to help Christian indie artists and songwriters just like you get songs heard. All right, I'm here with my friend Caleb Crino coming to us live from Nashville, Tennessee. How's it going this morning, Caleb?
Man, I'm doing great. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing pretty good, just down here in Florida, looking outside, seeing some sunny weather. So I'm sure that it's a beautiful day in your neck of the woods too, man. And you know, that's awesome, man. And like we were saying just a minute ago, you know, through social media, man, I've been following your journey and loving your music. Actually, I think the first time I heard your name was a radio interview that we were both on with Rock and Ron Carino, man. And
oh yes, that's right, yeah. Rock and Ron. Let's go. Let's go. Last name Carino, whereas my last name is Crino.
So very close, you know, and ever since then, I was like, man, this guy's music is awesome. So we've kind of been connected, and I'm excited personally just to hear your journey. So with that in mind, where did music kind of start for you? Where did it all begin?
Yeah, man. Well. First off, thanks for having me on here. You know, like same sentiment, man. I'm glad that we finally have the chance to connect a little bit deeper. It's been, like I said earlier, it's like ships in the night, kind of a little bit almost on social media and everything. But so where did my journey start? Well, I was born on a Tuesday. No, I'm kidding. That's no. So I first started doing music when I was a typical kid, like doing like sports and everything, and like that was fun. But my mom kind of heard me singing around the house, and she was like, "Well, you know, maybe we could get him involved in music, if nothing else, just so that he'll stop singing at the top of his lungs whenever he's around here." And so she forced me to sign up for a children's choir. And I was like, well, I don't really want to do this. She's like, well, just try it for a little while. And if you don't like it, you never have to do it again. First day when I was rehearsing, I just fell in love with singing, and I fell in love with music, and I fell in love with the collaborative process of, although my 6-year-old self did not know the word collaborative, fell in love with the collaborative process of music and everything that entails. And I'm like, man, I really want to keep going with this. So I fell in love with that and started picking up some other instruments along the way and everything. And now my dad's a pastor. My dad's a pastor with the Assemblies of God, which is a, you know, Christian denomination. Yeah. And so I grew up in the church. I grew up being in there every time the doors were open, and just kind of experienced everything. So worship and Christian music was a regular part of my life. You know, we were a pretty conservative family, so that was really primarily what we listened to was, you know, like the Christian hits. Like we're talking Stephen Chris Chapman, Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant. I mean, like Jars of Clay and
Third Day.
Some Third Day.
Yeah, that's where I started too, man. Right there.
Oh my gosh. And that was really, and I'll tell you this, like my dad was into like old Christian rock and roll. So we even listened to like some Petra.
Oh man, there it is.
Like that's just
melting faces for the Lord.
Oh my gosh, man! If secular music can have 80s solos, why can't we?
I mean, there's no reason why not.
There's no reason, and that is how Lincoln Brewster came into Christian music.
Bam! You're welcome, world.
Oh, and you're welcome, world, and thank you, Lincoln. Yes. But So yes, I just grew up loving Christian music and kind of having that be just a regular part of expressing my faith was just being involved in worship and being involved in like Christian music and everything. And so I wrote my first song when I was 15. I was in our youth worship band, the classic youth worship band. Did we know what we were doing? No. Did we do it anyway? Yes. But we had something where like, hey, we want an original song for this. And so I went and wrote an original song, and and the keyboard player went and wrote an original song, and we only needed one. So then we bring it back and they picked the other person's original song. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to devote my entire life now to proving that person wrong. I'm kidding. But that was how I wrote my first song. Like, man, I really love this. And it was kind of around that time where the Lord starts impressing on my heart, where like, man, I think this is something that the Spirit is guiding me to do in a vocational capacity. That's where that whole thing started. And so just it's just been a whole process and journey of exploring that over the years. And I say over the years, like I'm 60 years old, but I'm only 25. But I went to, I told you about this, Brian. So I went to college for a year down in your neck of the woods to Southeastern University in Lakeland, Florida. I did that for a year because my dad's an Assemblies of God pastor and Southeastern is an Assemblies of God school. So I had some scholarships to go there because of that and everything. So I went there for a year, absolutely loved it, and then was looking for a little bit something different musically. And so I looked around at other places and eventually landed on Belmont University up here in Nashville. So came up here and did my last 3 years as a songwriting major, just falling in love with the craft and the process of writing and the business side of music, like exploring that, what that looks like, and just how to be like a true artist and, make true art and like what exactly that means. And so graduated 2017 and just been doing music out here in Nashville ever since.
I love that story. And I love that so many people that I've talked to, and myself included, we got to cut our teeth in the youth band or on the stage at the fellowship hall or whatever it looks like, depending on that was me. Methodist church, man. I grew up at the fellowship hall with the terrazzo floor, man. That's where I first started playing those Third Day Burlap the Cashmere songs. So I totally get it, man. And I love that, you kind of follow that into, God's like, hey, I want you to do more with this than just, not that it's just at all like that. The youth stuff is incredibly important and it shapes people's lives, whether they're in music or not. Just that atmosphere is so crucial to, I feel, us developing. So, you started at Lakeland and then up to Music City. And I mean, so many amazing people have come out of Belmont and so many people that I've, got to meet along the way, just whether even just instructors and stuff. It seems like just an amazing place to be a creative and be fostered. So, with that experience, because we haven't talked about that a ton as far as the music education side, like, I mean, I know there's a lot, but what are some things that you really, look back at your time at Belmont that kind of shaped, whether it's relationships, whether it's, skills and training, whatever, like what are some things you picked up that really you carry with you kind of every day as you're going now?
Yeah. Well, I think, there are so many things. Like the college experience is really cool, but the right college really just enhances that, and Belmont was definitely the right place for me. It was the right school. There were just a bunch of things. Like I met a lot of the connections that I made there, and the people that I met, because that's really at the end of the day, it's the people that you meet. Not even as much the knowledge that you gain. It's a lot about that, but the people that you meet will help you along the way, and they'll be an aid to your journey, just as you can be an aid to their journey. So I met my best friend Jason while I was there. We were both songwriting majors, and we graduated around the same time, and we've just been making music together and that kind of thing. And I've learned so much from him as a writer, and we've collaborated a lot. It's that story a bunch of times where I've met a lot of people that have been just gracious enough to help me through my career and help me through everything that I've wanted to be doing. I've been fortunate to be able to do the same for some of them as well. So I think one particularly notable thing was in the songwriting program, they have an opportunity called the Songwriting Mentorship. And the Songwriting Mentorship is where, because this is Nashville and because, all of the best writers in the country, if not the world, are here. They're interspersed between here and LA and all that stuff, but there are just a million great writers here in town. So what they take advantage of that by offering a songwriting mentorship program where they will hook you up with a writer in your specific genre and your specific field to meet one-on-one every week and, run songs by them, get advice, like, maybe make connection with, could be publishers, could be labels, could be other writers, whatever. So I was fortunate enough to have my songwriting mentorship with a guy named Tony Wood. And if you don't, for anyone listening, if you don't know Tony's track record, look it up.
It's long.
It's a long one over a very long career. I think he's had something like 35 plus number ones on Christian radio. Wow. And he has just written with every Christian artist that you can think of. And he's just a lyrical, when I say genius, I mean straight up just a genius. I kind of went into it thinking, I can write lyrics a little bit. I'm decent at writing lyrics. And then I just hear him do his thing. When we wrote there, I would just get I'd just be blown away by the ability of that man. And but he's since then been a very good mentor for me. Since that, we've just kept in touch very closely over the last few years, and had the opportunity to write together a good bit outside of Belmont, and writing for my own artist stuff, writing for some other projects together. And I also do a lot of demo work for him, so he'll just send me things because I produce as well. So if he needs just some simple demos done for pitch meetings or whatever, I'll do that. So, and he's been really gracious enough and kind enough to connect me with other writers, with other artists, and kind of facilitate that for me. So he's been just great mentor, great friend, and that's a connection that I never would have had if I didn't go to Belmont. And so it's just that thing where a lot of those connections, a lot of those friendships, and a lot of those relationships have lasted me since I've graduated, and I pretty much owe most of what I have in my Nashville life to the friends and the people that I met at Belmont. So,
man, that's so good. And I think that's something that, we hear a lot of adding value, and it's not all about you. And I think you're a great example of that. You're not just the guy who's like, okay, Tony Wood, like, what can you do for me?
Right.
You're offering to help him along the way. And that means so much, because then, it's not just a one-sided relationship, which is, it's not beneficial to anyone really, because they don't last. So I love that you're not just like, you didn't just leave it at Belmont and that was cool. Like, you have continued on, and that's been an elevating part for you for the whole time. So you mentioned, you produce, and I know that you've been releasing music for a while now. So what's that process like for you? Are you doing co-writing? You're writing on your own? Are you self-producing? Like, what's that general? And I know it's probably different for each project, but like in general, like, what's your process been in that way?
Yeah. Can I come back to that in just a second? I think you touched on something a second ago that I would love to talk about a little bit more. What you said, kind of having those relations where it's not all about you and it's not all about what you can get from somebody. That is really important to me. Another person that I met through my time at Belmont is an entertainment lawyer named Mark Maxwell. Great man, good friend, good mentor, and he does like legal work for like Toby Mac, like Natalie Grant, Winter Jam, a bunch of labels. So he's kind of the guy when it comes to Christian music entertainment law. He wrote a book and released it recently called, so on the title, on the front of the book, it says networking skills, but the S in skills is crossed out. So it turns into networking kills.
Ooh.
And his whole idea, as someone who's very successful in an industry that requires a lot of, quote unquote networking, is like the networking push is to let me make a bunch of friends so they can all help me and they can do things for me. And all that. Whereas that's the opposite of, as Christians, that's the opposite of what the gospel calls us to do. And what the gospel calls us to do is to serve other people, not that we may be served. And so, so he explores a lot, just like, what does that mean to see how you can serve other people in a way that is not like expecting a return? In that way, the Lord is going to bless your effort because you're not doing it for yourself. That reminds me of what Jesus said in Matthew 6. It says, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and then all these things will be given to you as well. So anyway, so that was, you just started with that. I was like, that is something that I'm very passionate about. I wanted to talk about for a second.
I'm glad you did, man. Cause I think that, like, Jesus came to serve, not to be served. And if we're trying to be Christ-like, then that's literally like the roadmap. So I love that you brought that up and highlighted that even more with another example, because if we're not doing that, then there might be a reason why we're not going as far as we could be, because it might be too self-seeking. And that's not to be too harsh. It's just, it's the reality. And two, like, people may not realize that's what it is. You might, the mentality could be like, oh, I need to just get in a room with that person and then they'll make all my dreams come true. But the reality is like, if we can help others, then there might be a chance. And two, I think that's the line to walk, though, is like helping others, like you said, without trying to get anything, just helping others strictly and simply because it's the right thing to do. And if you have the ability to help somebody, we should always try to do that. I mean, we all have capacity. There's time limits and things like that. But like, if we do our best to serve others, like, that's what God has called us to do, and that's the best thing we can do. So I'm glad you said that, man.
Yeah, well, thanks. So what you were saying before about kind of process of songwriting and everything. So so I think, I'm still at a fairly new stage of exploring what exactly, me being an artist looks like and my process and all that. And I think there's also evolutions of artists where, they'll experiment with different things and I'm sure your process has changed over the years and everything. For the last probably year, and I would say really getting into quarantine, I've really realized kind of the value of, because before I would do co-writes and all that stuff, and I still do co-writes fairly often, but I would do co-writes and getting in a room with multiple people and doing that and kind of busting some songs out. But I've really realized the value over the last year, especially through quarantine, of writing by myself. Just be me in my room with whether it's or my studio with my guitar or my piano or whatever, and just kind of taking the time to really explore the depths of what I'm feeling and of what I want to say as an artist. And I found a lot of value in that, because in a writing room, it can sometimes feel rushed, like, oh, we have to have this over by X amount of time so that we can go do this or do that. And like when it's just me writing by myself, there's no time limit, there's no rush. There's just, what are you really feeling and how do you want to say it, and what's a way that you can use that to minister and connect with people. So there's just, and I feel like I can reach a little bit deeper into my own self when I do that. It was Ralph Waldo Emerson that said humans deep down we're all the same. We're created in the image of God. So the deeper we dive into ourselves, the more we will pull out what is really universal and can really connect with everybody else. So I've been experimenting with that a lot lately. So got a bunch of songs I'm going to be coming out with pretty soon here in an EP. More on that later. But in that, I've really experimented with a lot of just writing by myself. And there's some co-writes in there as well. But so this project and the last couple singles that I've done are completely self-produced. I put out an EP in 2019. I worked with another producer named Justin Amenrud, fantastic Christian pop producer. In this whole journey to understand myself as an artist, I've been diving into the self-production. So what it looks like right now is I'll either write an idea by myself or a full song by myself. And if I just write the idea by myself, I'll take that to some trusted friends and co-writers, and we'll finish it out.
Man, that's exciting. Yeah, and the stuff that I've heard sounds really great. So Thanks, man. Were you working on the production side before Belmont, or is that something you picked up in there? Or what did that journey kind of look like? Because that's a whole skill in itself.
It is very different. It's funny, like they're all different skills in music can be completely self-isolated, which is hilarious to me, because like even talking about Tony Wood, like Tony, like he plays the piano, but like he tries to avoid writing melody and chords kind of as much as he can. He's like, let me just stick to lyrics, but and even like they're completely different skill sets within songwriting, and then within production, and then within artistry and all that stuff. But I first started recording back when I wrote a little bit after I wrote my first song at 15.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, well, let me figure out how to, produce myself and that kind of thing. So I didn't have a Mac, so I couldn't get GarageBand like all my friends had. But I know, right? So I started on this old PC with this program called Mixcraft. I don't know if you know about that.
I've heard of it.
It is, it's kind of an entry-level beginner DAW or digital audio workstation. Yeah. And I was just, because I figured out that I could record something, then go back and record something else and layer it underneath.
Magic.
And just a revolutionary concept for a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
And I told my mom about it. I was like, Mom, this is how this works. She's like, yeah, did you not know that? I was like, well, I guess I didn't. So I just fell in love with it and started making just a ton of mistakes along the way, but in the best way, because that's how you learn. So I was doing it for a while before I hit Belmont. And then when I was at Belmont, and I took a class or two at Southeastern as well, they kind of helped me refine that and shape that a little bit. Then I actually got to intern with, probably know who Ed Cash is.
For sure.
So Ed produces Chris Tomlin. For those of you listening who don't know, he produces Chris Tomlin, David Crowder. He's done some stuff with Need to Breathe, and just a ton of other artists, Christian, and has written and produced many top Christian music songs. So I got to intern with him, and that was really a big thing for me, learning their workflow and learning kind of how they relate to artists, what that process looks like, how they walk an artist through everything. And I've taken a lot of those concepts and implemented it into my production stuff as well.
Man, well, getting to hang out with the masters of the craft between Tony Wood and Ed Cash, and I'm sure many others, getting to glean from that environment is just literally priceless, man. So that's awesome to hear that. So something I always love to ask people is, what's a piece of advice that you'd give to your younger self? I know there's probably a lot, but what would you say as you're getting started, or even more recently than that, what would you say to yourself and to anyone listening as an encouragement along their journey?
Yeah, that's deep. I think I would say care less what other people think of you. Because that is just, and it's my tendency, and I think it's the tendency of quite a number of people in our society, and I think it's an inherently human societal trait, hearing what other people think of you. I would tell myself, don't write what you think other people want to hear, write what you want to say, and write what issues just from the depth of your heart and your passions. And that's where you'll access the truest art. That's one thing that I would say. I think another thing is don't worry so much.
Oh, man.
Oh gosh. And that's something I still try to tell myself. And I think I repeat that to myself every day. The future is going to happen to you, whether you want it to or not. And, and like you can strive and you can work as hard as you want. And I believe in that. I believe in hard work, to do at the thing that God's called you to do. I believe in that. I would tell younger Caleb that the best opportunities and the best relationships and friendships in your life will not come from things that you've earned, and they'll not come from things that you worked for and you did just the right things for. They will come from the people that God has specifically put into your life to aid you to get where he's calling you to go. So worry less, praise more.
Oh man, that sounds like an EP title right there.
Let's go. Oh, let's write this idea. All right. To anyone listening, we have officially copyrighted the title. I'm kidding. You can't copyright a title, but
you can on this podcast.
You can on this podcast and on
not
this
any other one.
That's how we do it around here. So
hashtag TM. Thanks.
That's right. Oh,
man, worry less, praise more. I love that's the title of the episode, to be honest. Let's really talk about it.
Dang. Okay. All right.
I mean, yeah, that's good. So, and kind of on that note, like, I feel like something that the reason that that's such a thing, because when you're saying these things, I'm thinking every anxiety verse or worry verse in my Bible app is literally highlighted, because like those are the ones that I always return to every day. But then I'm like, okay, God, I know I'm not supposed to worry about tomorrow because there's enough worry of its own. But then like, why can't I not worry about tomorrow? I don't understand it. And I'm like, well, is part of it because of this hyper connection we have via social media, because we're constantly inundated with everybody's highlight reel. Yeah. And it makes us feel less. And that's not the intention. Like when I'm posting something, I'm like, man, I hope that everyone feels bad because they see how cool this is and how awesome my family is. Like that's never my intention. It's just to share, our lives is the hope and the heart behind it for a lot of us. But like, I feel like it's that constant inundation of like, man, I'm not as good as those people. So why is that? And I should just give up and quit. So like, what is, because like you do a great job with branding and social media, and I kind of wanted to talk about that stuff, that side too. Like, what has been kind of your strategy and your outlook and mindset with using social media as a tool for your artistry?
Yes, that is something that. Well, first off, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. I'll take that compliment. It doesn't feel like that all the time. I have a very what I would characterize as a love-hate relationship with social media, and I enjoy posting about my life, and I enjoy kind of keeping people updated on things. But at the same time, I think so I I know people that work in social media management and have that whole thing. And I've heard all the things that like you need to be posting 3 pieces of content a day, and you need to be doing this, and you need to be doing that, and you need to be doing all this. And like when I hear all that stuff, as friends of mine will tell you, I just kind of just regress into myself and just like, oh gosh. And I'm like,
too much.
It's too much. It's overload. I wrestle between like not feeling like I'm doing enough and just feeling like, well, maybe I just shouldn't do anything at all, versus, well, no, I really like sharing stuff. Just sharing stuff about my life, and I think that's the difference for me is where when I'm sharing stuff about me and when I'm sharing stuff about just what I'm up to, just as a person and as a musician, it's just like, let me let other people in on this and not keep this all to myself, not hoard all this to myself. When I kind of get that mindset, then it becomes more interactional and less of a chore and less of a almost a burden, I guess you'd say. I've also had the thought in the future, like, dang, if I have, let's say someone has 10,000 people to follow them, right? And let's say, algorithms being what they are, let's say only 2,000 of those people will actively see most of what you post. That means that you have an opportunity to speak directly to 2,000 people every single day.
Yeah.
Like how incredible is that? Like not just a privilege, but like that's like a responsibility. So I think, we don't necessarily have the responsibility to post all the time, but when we do, like, let's have it be personal, let's have it be meaningful, let's have it be something that can really connect with people and just show just show personality and talk about things that matter.
Yeah, especially in our context, in our lane of being Christian artists and songwriters, because like there is a deep well of darkness, and I mean the Bible says dark and dying world. Like, it's not like a new thing, like that's just how it's always been. So like when we have the opportunity to actually shed some light, because it's kind of funny, like when we first started hearing about TikTok, I was like, okay, cool, we'll download it. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to see any of this stuff. Bye. And then we just like shelved it for like a year. And then it was not until more recently we realized that the algorithm is so, what it is. If you just spend at first it's just going to try to shoot spaghetti out to see what you like. But then if you start to actually like look at things that interest you, like worship stuff and singing, and like that's what it'll start showing you all the time. And I know that I've seen, and I kind of wanted to bring this up too, is like, you've been doing a great job over on TikTok, which is a relatively it's the newest thing, I'd say for now anyways.
For sure.
And so you're finding channels and ways to get your own unique voice and twist on stuff. So like, what's been your strategy with that? Because I know a lot of people are kind of curious about TikTok, and like, what's been your experience so far and your overall strategy?
So my strategy, I've thought about this a lot. I've consulted people. I've really, after iterations and iterations of kind of strategy, I've refined my strategy really down to what is very, very simple 2 words, and that is goof around.
Love it.
So I think it's funny because like, I was kind of pushed into making a TikTok. Someone said, you need to make a TikTok, and you have to, because this is the greatest potential for viral explosive growth. And I was like, well, I mean, okay, fine, whatever. But so I made it, and then I just kind of started realizing the tone of TikTok. It's like, it's just not very serious. It's just like, man, just kind of goof around on it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, and if there's one thing that you need to know about me, is your boy can goof around.
Man, I love it.
So, same. That's right. So I'm like, okay, well, I can do that. So I was like, okay, what's something funny or stupid that I could do? And so I kind of started in with the idea of, okay, well, what if I did? And I started a series called Regular Songs Turned into Christian Songs. And that was where I was like, all right, well, let me just take a song that's like really popular right now. Like, it did like 24 Karat Golden, like Mood, like Justin Bieber, Anyone. Or that kind of thing, and just rewrote the lyrics and just kind of made them some Christian choruses, and just for the heck of it, just me sitting and playing on my piano or my guitar or something. Or I did like Old Town Road.
Oh man, that's like the TikTok hit.
Exactly, man, exactly. Yeah. Quality music, but rewrote the lyrics to that, and man, it's so funny how quickly like the algorithm realized, oh, people are kind of liking this, and so I had one get like 250,000 views, and just like randomly, I'm like, okay, well, fine. I've also been like experimenting with things like worship songs in a minor key, to kind of give it that cool eerie feel, and anything that's kind of like a newer and a fresher take on Christian music in some element. I'm like, well, let's just kind of have fun with it. And so that's what I've been doing. And apparently people have been loving it. So I think, got like, I don't know, just like 20,000 like followers on TikTok, which I'm like, well, dang, well, that's great. How it's like, 5 times the amount of what I have on Instagram or whatever. Yeah. It's fascinating just how the algorithm will put you in front of people if you're just kind of having fun and just making cool stuff.
Man, I love that. And that's definitely something I've noticed too. Like, it's kind of funny how, even though social media is still a relatively new thing, I mean, I literally remember when the internet kind of came out to my house and we had like AOL, so it's not like it's been around that long, but now it's like, like Facebook feels like it's like old school, even though it's really not. And then
Right.
Instagram is like getting old school. Now TikTok's like the new thing, but like
Right.
with that dynamic, like Instagram seems much more professional. I mean, stories are a little bit more like TikTok, but
Sure.
and Facebook is more like personal almost. But then
Sure.
TikTok is like you said, it's just like kind of like just have some fun, and you can kind of it can be different, a different dynamic. Because I
Right.
found like if I do the same kind of post on TikTok as I do on Instagram, they don't do nearly as well. I'll even, as a fun example, I'll even post the same video across like a few platforms.
Yeah.
And like you'll see a definite difference depending on the type of content. Like,
Yep.
like we have this one, we were talking about this before, this one of my son Henry and I going on a roller coaster Legoland that has like 400,000 views. And in Instagram Reels, it has like 30 views.
Right.
It's
Right.
like the same exact video. It's just platform just changes everything because that's what they want. So it's like doing things to understand. And that sounds like that's just what you're doing is you're being aware of the platform and trying to figure out, feed the machine what it wants to eat, I suppose, what you say.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fascinating because I love how you put it. We're just, each of those, like there's a different point to each of those platforms.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it can be categorized as Facebook and Instagram are kind of from the model of social media where it's like, connect with your friends and see what your friends are up to. So like that's where, it's like, oh, Caleb had the eggs for breakfast. Okay, great. In the Facebook world, that was good content. That's solid content right there. But then TikTok comes along, and because it's so based around the For You page, you're not seeing the stuff from your friends. You're seeing stuff from complete strangers. So what wins out is just pure raw entertainment. So it's not like I don't necessarily need to show you anything about myself. I just need to make you laugh for 15 seconds or 60 seconds or whatever it is. In essence, like TikTok is it's just different. There's a completely different point to it than really any other social media, which is very peculiar.
And I think too, it just getting caught up in like trying to make people laugh is for one, it's fun, and that's life-giving in and of itself, but also like with anything, there's a great quote. I think it's honestly Graham Cochran. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Recording Revolution. He's a big YouTuber guy, actually from Tampa over that side of the state. But when he has a quote says, with an audience, anything is possible. So like, even it doesn't necessarily matter how you get there, you can try all kinds of different things, but at the end of the day, if you've got, a massive following, you can send people to Spotify. You can send people to your Instagram. You can send people to your website, and you can sell merch. It's just a matter of amassing an audience that's interested enough in what you do and find you entertaining. Well, then over time they grow with you, and with that audience, like he said, anything is possible. So I love that you're doing that, and I'm always excited to follow along. And kind of with that in mind, like, with TikTok, and I'll put all this stuff in the description below, but like, what's the best place where people can connect with you? And also too, like, even before that, like you mentioned you got some music coming up, so I wanted you to talk about that and then how people can kind of connect with you to make sure that they're in it when it drops.
Yes. I think the two best ways to connect with me are Instagram and TikTok. Those are the two kind of places where I live, and in the digital space anyway. Yes, and so the Instagram, it's more personal. Oh, this is what I've been up to, and then TikTok is like, let's have some fun, people.
Yeah.
So yeah, if for anyone interested, feel free to shoot over and follow me on both of those, Instagram and TikTok specifically. As far as new music, so I've been working on this project for the last while, and I've released a couple singles off of it. Those two singles are Lord Jesus Come, another song called Basics. And so I've released both of those, and probably going to have one more single coming out before then, and one that I was just fortunate enough to write with, I don't know if you know who Mike Donahue is. He's the lead singer of a band called 10th Avenue North. So got to write a song with him, and I think awesome. Going to be releasing that one pretty soon here, and followed by a 7-song EP. So the best place to get updates for that is definitely going to be Instagram. If you want to, shoot me a follow on Instagram. I'll be posting about that and kind of hyping that up as it gets closer here. And ideally that'll be sometime in the next about month and a half to 2 months where that's going to be coming out. And
awesome, man. Well, yeah, definitely. Like I said, I'll put it all in the description because we definitely want people to jump in and follow along with your journey along with your Spotify, and I'll link it all up below. And before we go, I always love to pray over everybody. So, God, thank you so much for Caleb. Thank you so much for his heart. Thank you so much for the joy that's exuding from him, God. And just let your light continue to shine through him, God, as he's making impact in these different social media platforms and these different areas of ministry that he finds himself in, God, as he continues to chase after the dreams that you've placed in his heart, Lord. I just pray for continued inspiration, continued fuel, and continued direction as he's just looking to seek your face in all things, God. As he's preparing for this new album, these new songs to drop, God, I just pray that more people are impacted by your love through this music than ever before, God, that his reach and his platform continues to rise as he's serving others before himself, God. It's so incredible to get to hear the excitement and the passion behind everything he's doing, God, and we just continue increase in that over his life, Lord. Thank you so much for your plan, your hand in his life, God, and we just give you all the glory. Your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
We want to help reach as many Christian indie artists and songwriters as possible, and one way we can do that is with your help. So if you could take a minute and leave us a review on iTunes, that would be so appreciated. This is how the iTunes algorithm will push this content out to more and more Christian indie artists and songwriters. So, like I said, if you could just take a couple seconds, leave us a review, that would be so awesome, means so much to us, and we would really appreciate it.